How's it going, everybody? And welcome back into another episode of the CELTICS Talk Weekly podcast. I am your host, Rob Haytayan. Joined with me are my two beautiful and lovely co-hosts, Ian Angelo and Justin Lowe. Guys, thank you so much for joining us back. So we thought last episode was a good one and exciting. Porzingis, smart. We didn't think it could get any crazier than it did. And man, oh man, did it get crazier, guys. If you've been living under a rock, I'll break the news. But before I do that, I'm just going to say the season starts in less than a week, guys. If you're not following or subscribed to us at the CELTICS Talk Weekly, do it right now. We are going to be pushing and creating some amazing content this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. We would love for you guys to join us on this journey we're taking. So if you're listening on Spotify, pause the or swipe up, go on to Instagram at CELTICS Talk Weekly, follow us there on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, guys. But let's jump into it. If you've been living under a rock, Jrue Holiday is a Boston Celtic. The Portland Trailblazers and the Boston Celtics make a blockbuster move. The Celtics send Portland Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, 2 first-round picks, the Warriors 2024 unprotected pick, and the Boston Celtics 2029 unprotected pick. Justin, I'm going to start it with you. Was this price too high, or was it just right?
I mean, anytime you kind of part ways with somebody from your core, I think the initial thought for me was like, damn, that was a haul. But for me, I mentioned it on the kind of breaking news live stream that we had the other day when the Jrue Holiday trade happened. Um, it was just kind of like you got to take risks. I do think the Celtics improved tremendously in their backcourt. I do think that move made their front court thin, with Chris Stapps and Al, and then Luke Cornett as your backup center now, depending on kind of how they use Al Horford. But look, I like it. I really do. I'm going to miss Robert Williams, sixth man of the year. Malcolm Brogdon, he had a great season with us, but the move was necessary. I really do think it was necessary. We now have a true point guard, which we've been asking for since Isaiah Thomas left. I mean, Kyrie could never stay injured. He was a head case and all this. Kemba Walker could never stay healthy. But now we got our true point guard who he could play both ends of the ball. I like the move, Ian.
Me too. I mean, I said it before on the live stream too. I'm like, it's tough losing Robert Williams, but I mean, this is a championship team, and you just got to go all in. This is the year. You already traded Marcus Smart, so honestly, trading Robert Williams is just kind of an extension of going all in. And when you have a chance to get a guy like Jrue Holiday, yeah, it's gonna suck trading Robert Williams, but I mean, it's Jrue Holiday. Like you can't pass up on that opportunity.
I mean, he was phenomenal last year. He averaged 19 points per game, 7.5 assists, 5 rebounds, almost a steal and a half. Shot 38% from three, 48% from the floor. He's an all-star, all defensive guard versus Boston last year. And I think this, because if you've been following me on social media or you watched the YouTube live we did, my whole thing is Boston versus Milwaukee, right? How does Boston match up against the top teams? Because at the end of the day, that's who they're going to be playing in the playoffs, right? Holiday gave us problems last year. And really the past couple years. He averaged 23 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 53% from the floor, 54% from three, and 2 steals per game matched up against Boston. So is the price too high? We gave up a lot. That 2029 unprotected pick is a little bit of a gamble. I think we'll still be pretty solid, pretty good in 2029. But something I think I love about this trade is the idea and the dynamic in which Milwaukee goes and gets Dame, and you go and get Milwaukee's guy. And I think that's a little bit of fuel in the fire for Jrue Holiday coming into Boston, still being on in my opinion, the front runner to win the NBA Finals. And then you're going to potentially get to go up against Milwaukee, who is going to be having the guy who they replaced you with. I think that is a phenomenal move by Brad to do that. I think Jrue Holiday is one of those players you go out and get if you get the chance. I do think Rob leaves a hole at big man, which is going to be interesting because we put so much into Kristaps because we were like, okay, well, we have Kristaps and we have the depth now, right? It was always the depth because the injuries were such a problem. So, but like my thing is Porzingis over the past 3-4 years has been way more reliable than Rob has in terms of games played. So it's like, sure, you traded Rob depth wise, that hurts, but you should have been more worried with Rob as your center last year than I mean, Kristaps is an all-star caliber player, guys. No?
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
so the thing is with Kristaps as well. If he is able to stay healthy, I just think you're going to be able to kind of reach deep into the bag, and you can go so many different ways with Kristaps compared to kind of Robert Williams.
Yeah.
I think Kristaps not only being like tremendously taller and bigger than Robert Williams, Kristaps can stretch the floor both defensively and offensively. He could play the perimeter if you need him. He could rim protect. I don't know. I'm just really excited about Kristaps Porzingis. I get it, the whole meme and oh, he's fragile. It's like, go look at the other players in the league. Like, nobody talks about Kevin Durant missing time. Nobody really talks about. Obviously, they talk about Kawhi missing time. Dude
LeBron
hasn't played.
James
Yeah,
misses a lot of time.
like Marcus Smart missed a solid amount of time in recent years. And I get these are all different positions, different players, different situations, but like an injury is an injury. Missing games is missing games, right? Like I do feel like Kristaps in Boston though just it totally opens up something, especially with Jason and Jalen and Jason.
Yeah. And like, I mean, you've heard the saying, the best ability is availability.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's just going to be one of those things where it just kind of feels like a player like Porzingis who got injured really early in his career is going to have the stigma that he's just an injury prone player, even though last year he had a pretty good year and he was
Yeah.
pretty healthy. So it just feels like that's just what's going to happen. But with the front court, I mean, we did sign another guy who I'm very excited for. And I think, I mean, he's not going to be a direct Robert Williams replacement, but I still think he's pretty underrated and he's pretty good because we signed Wenyen Gabriel.
Yeah.
I'm honestly excited for him because I watched him a lot watching Lakers games last year. He was pretty solid. So I don't know. I feel like if the Celtics can develop a guy like Robert Williams, I feel like they could develop a guy like Gabriel too.
And it's interesting because it's like everyone says, oh my God, Boston lost a step defensively. I mean, did they? I mean, did they really? I mean, Kristaps Porzingis was the most efficient post defender in the league last year. 7'3", super long. So it's like, if you look at that, okay, well, Porzingis and Al, two great defenders in the post, can really guard 1 through 5. Al kind of lost a step, and then you replace Brogdon with a guy like Jrue Holiday, who is just absolutely like, I mean, Holiday's arguably the best perimeter defender in the league, him and Smart at least. So it's like, did you really lose a step off like defensively? I mean, in my opinion, we improved defensively this offseason. You can call me crazy, but I mean, I don't see any holes between the big time signings and even the little signings like Lamar Stevens and O'Shea Brissett. I mean, those guys, Jordan Walsh, those guys play defense. And I think one thing I took out of media day was that Missoula made a point to mention that defense is what takes you there. And I think that is a step in the right direction, I feel like.
Yeah, it's pretty weird that it's like all of a sudden the Celtics have no depth, right? Like
Right.
all of a sudden the Celtics have no depth because like they don't have bigger names or notable names on their bench. Like Lamar Stevens is known for his perimeter defense. He's
Absolutely.
Jordan Walsh coming out of college known for what? His grit and his defense, right? O'Shea Brissett, good 3-point shooter, little inconsistent last year, but he could be a very good defender as well. People aren't kind of banking. I don't think people are banking on the fact that Jalen and Jason are quite good at defense as well, and they both are making it out to be like they want to be on first team all defense together. And I think an interesting quote when Jaylen Brown, did his media day interviews and stuff with NBC Sports Boston, Mark D'Amico, was that he went out and he mentioned how, these players, and he wasn't discrediting anybody, but he was kind of just mentioning how players in the NBA are based on if they're good or not, just based off their offensive stats, based off their 3-point rating, their points per game, their field goal percentages, not so much what they do on the defensive end. So for me, it feels like they feel a pride and they know that they were off last year defensively and that they're going to make that a focus this year. How many times, guys, especially during the playoffs, how many times did the Celtics let poor shooting nights dictate their defense? Pretty much like every freaking game, right? Like every game they were shooting under 40%. They were having off. They weren't playing defense because they were letting that dictate that. I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
Yeah,
I feel like it's almost like I mean, even still, we have 6 guys who are like all-star or 5 guys who are all-star caliber players. Then you have Al off the bench is 6, or White off the bench. Al is 6. That's 6 players. Playoff rotation maybe gives you 1 or 2 more guys. Okay, let's go.
That's the crazy thing. People don't realize, like, playoff rotations, they're not going 10, 11, 12 guys deep. They're going 7, maybe 8 deep.
Like, and then you have guys on the bench where it's like you can slot in if there's injured. Like, okay, throughout the season, Lamar Stevens, Shvee, Hauser, I mean, those guys, O'Shea, Brissett, I could see Brissett honestly cracking the playoff rotation if you want my opinion. Those guys are difference makers throughout the course of 82 games. And then they're going to shave 5 minutes off. And then once the playoffs hit, you're going to have the best, in my opinion, the best 7-man rotation in the NBA is the Boston Celtics.
Right. Look at last season with like Luke Cornett and Sam Hauser. They were getting hella minutes in the regular season. Then playoff time came. And I know guys did get healthy towards playoffs, but then playoff time came. We didn't really see them at all.
I don't really think we needed them, but still, I get your point. It's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, even look at the Nuggets who won the championship. They only went like 7 people deep, and they only went 8 men deep when
that's the thing. Yeah,
they needed a guy like Jeff Green or Christian Braun or something. Like, it's just like one of those things where it's like, I think the Celtics are going to be fine. I feel like depth in the NBA is a little bit overrated, especially in these conversations.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can also say that about Milwaukee when they traded for Dame. Like, it's like, oh, how's their depth going to go? But like, they also have a good depth. So it's one of those things where it's like depth doesn't really matter when you have a lot of guys who can become really good players. Like, I'm excited for Jordan Walsh. I really am. I think he's going to be a great defender. And the fact that he's going to have Holiday, Derek White, and Al Horford to help him out with defense is going to be fun to watch. And you know who I have a comp for? Jordan Walsh. Obviously, this isn't like 100%, and it's really raw and random. I think he can be a Mikal Bridges type.
I was thinking that. Yes, absolutely.
The long arms.
Yes.
Really good at defense. If he can become like a legit shooter like Mikal Bridges is.
But like Suns Mikal Bridges, not Brooklyn.
Suns Mikal Bridges.
Suns
not
Mikal
Brooklyn,
Bridges.
but
yeah.
If he can develop into that, I think he's going to be a pretty good player in the NBA.
No, absolutely. I've been high on Jordan Walsh. I don't know if it's a shame because it'll be fun to watch him, but it's given me like, all right, obviously I don't want to jump ahead. This guy is a 2nd-round pick. I think he's a project, but it's given me like rookie Jaylen Brown vibes where it's like, I think you're going to see him really in the game for like 8-9 minutes a game max. You might not see him sometimes a good amount of the time, but I'm excited for Walsh. I do want to touch back on the Celtics Milwaukee point. I think at where each team stands currently, playoff series, 7 games, Boston beats Milwaukee in 5 games. And I'm pretty confident in that. I don't think the Milwaukee versus Boston matchup, Milwaukee improved in any manner. I think that Holiday was such an important piece to that puzzle versus Boston in terms of guarding Brown and Tatum, and you lose that, and then Boston adds that guy, literally like that guy, the guy that was able to stop and wreak havoc on your 2-star wings. Now you have him. Boston last year versus Milwaukee beat him, blew him out twice, once on Christmas at the Garden, once on the road towards the end of the year. We blew him out. It was a 3-point barrage. We beat him out by 30. And then we lost to them in overtime when Jrue Holiday scored 40 and our starters didn't play.
Yeah.
And then we beat them 7 the year prior in a team that is significantly worse than where it's at now. The Bucks were 2 years younger. The Celtics were also 2 years younger. That's bad for Milwaukee. That's better for Boston. Boston has a much more talented team than they did 2 years ago. So I think that if you look at it, Boston, Milwaukee, call me crazy, 5 or 6 games, I don't see it going 7. I think Boston is just that much better matchup-wise versus Milwaukee.
Boston's always matched up well against Milwaukee. Like it's been a thing for a while. I will say this though. I mentioned this to you today, Rob, as well. Like Milwaukee has to kind of like, don't get me wrong, they're very happy with Dame, as they should be. But Milwaukee has to be like, damn, like the guy we just lost, the guy we just gave up, the guy we just got admitted like he's the best perimeter defender in the league. He's the toughest to play against in the league.
Yeah.
We gave that up, and our rival, the team that we need to be most worried about, got him.
So
right?
I have a quote from the Low Post, not Justin, Zach Lowe, Celtics guy. Great listen if you haven't. I mean, yeah, right. So here's a quote from him. Quote, I got texts from a couple of nonpartisan front office executives who don't really care how this unfolded, that were in the vein of this is what I worried about for the Bucks when they made the Lillard trade. That boss would come in and get Jrue Holiday. And the Bucks may, and this is their words, not mine, may have inadvertently helped their biggest rival more than they realized they did, and maybe more than they helped themselves. That's the part that's a bridge a little too far for me, but that's what I heard. I also heard from a couple of front office executives from good Eastern Conference teams. In the text that I received in immediate wake of the trade were 2 or 3 words long, to the tone of, well, fuck us, or oof, this sucks. So
when was this?
This was 2 days
That was earlier.
yesterday.
Damn, it sounds like I just plagiarized that. I swear to God, I did not see that. Like, I did not.
No, yeah, no, I know. I mean, it is
Yeah.
absolutely like, if you look at what just happened, what Milwaukee just did to themselves, I think it's like, think about Boston's weakness last. Oh my God! Think about Boston's weakness last year, guys. Hold on, I gotta plug back in my headphones because I just love the Celtics so much. I get too excited sometimes. But if you look at what happened last year, where the weakness was, I mean, does Jrue Holiday not fill that void? So it's he was coming. I mean, if you're if you're Milwaukee, you have to. Was that not a thought in your mind where maybe we don't do this trade because there's a world in which Jrue Holiday goes to Boston, or was it just like, screw it, we got to get Dame because we need to keep Giannis, and it looks pretty on paper, and Dame's really good scorer, so we're gonna do that.
Honestly, I think Milwaukee knew the risk of trading Jrue Holiday, but I mean, for them, I don't think they care. I think they just wanted to make a move that proved to Giannis that they're willing to win and they're willing to put stars around him. Because let's be honest, even though Milwaukee is a really great team, it's still a small market. You're not going to attract a whole lot of big free agents to come to Milwaukee, even
true.
with Giannis. And I mean, like, look at their team. Their team's pretty much been the same for like 5 years now. It's pretty much been the Middleton, the Giannis, and then the rest of the pieces.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you're not going to get a big free agent, so you have to make these kind of big trades for stars if you want to get any more superstars on your team. So I think they had to make the move. And plus, I mean, if he didn't make the move, he might have gone to Miami, and then Miami would be an issue. So I don't think the Bucks cared. But now it's a reality that Jrue Holiday is now on the Celtics. I think now they're thinking like, oh man, yeah, that's not very good that we traded a guy who we traded for to win a championship.
Right.
And now he's traded to our biggest rival.
It's kind of like when Philly had the idea to sign Al Horford just to take him away from Boston, but they weren't really thinking.
Just thinking that. I was
right?
Like, that has that type of feeling.
But they weren't. But they didn't like think to themselves, how does this work once he gets here?
Right.
So it's like, it was a trade that it's kind of like the opposite, a matter of fact, actually. It's a trade that they didn't stop and think, what's the matchup look like against Boston? What does putting this Jrue, because you knew Portland wasn't going to keep Jrue Holiday. They should have, I mean, everyone knew that. So so he's going to an Eastern Conference team. He's going to a team that you have to beat. And so you're rolling the dice. I think it would have been better for them if you went to Miami. But the idea of Jrue Holiday ending up in Boston, in my opinion, should have been like, oh, maybe we don't do this, right? Or maybe we consult Giannis about this first. Or maybe that we just take a second because, I mean, or maybe find a different trade where you're giving up Middleton and not Holiday, because Middleton's it was just, in my opinion, it just doesn't, it like makes sense, but at the same time, it's like does
on
it
paper, on paper, it's a
like,
pretty
was it
raw
really
trade,
like what I like? Are your odds not identical to winning a championship next season? And maybe you get Giannis for an extra year and doesn't ask out next year. Because if you want my prediction, the Bucks lose to Boston next year, and then they get bounced in the second round the year after that. And then Giannis is out the door trotting his way to a team like the
New
Golden
York.
State, New York, or Miami, right? Like
Right.
that's probably what's going to happen. So it's like, okay, you prolonged the inevitable. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
interesting.
I didn't know you were
Right?
going to say anything, Ian. Sorry. I was going to start something.
I didn't have anything. I didn't know you were going to say
Dude,
anything.
so it's funny you brought up that Al Horford situation, Rob, because I didn't want to interrupt you when you were talking, because I was going to say that. It kind of
I'm
reminds me,
sorry. I took your point.
it reminds me of the Al Horford situation, not the exact, obviously, details of it, but
Yeah.
in terms of, it's our biggest rival was going to pry away what Al Horford, because Al dominated the Sixers at the time. So it's like, okay, we get this guy in. Well, excuse my language, but Philly was like, well, shit, now what do we do with him? We got him.
Right.
He bit to the money. He's here. Now what do we do with him?
The idea was right. The idea was
No,
right.
the idea was 100%
Then
right.
they realized they have Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
and Al
So
Horford
so
at the same
yeah.
level.
So
then we
if
said,
it fit,
oh,
it
well.
was like a phenomenal idea. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, the name of the game in the NBA is to every chance have a year. That's the name of the
Correct.
game, right? You don't want to be the
Correct.
Chicago Bulls stuck in mediocrity.
That's the thing.
Damn.
That's the worst place you could be is mid, right? At least if you suck, you're good enough to get a draft pick. But if
Right.
you're good, you can compete in the playoffs
Yeah.
and go for a title. If you're mid, then it's just
Right.
terrible.
So it's like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, and maybe I could be completely off on this, because maybe my instincts on Damian Lillard, I haven't watched a whole lot of Damian Lillard full games in my life. He's been out west.
Right.
He's cooked the Celtics here and there. But my opinion on Dame is a high volume, high level scorer. Who just, the volume was really there the past couple years with McCollum out of town and that Portland team kind of rebuilding. So we'll see. We'll just have to see. That's all we got. I get, right?
Yeah, and I'm.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
you got it, Justin.
I did a poll on Giannis, or on the whole Lillard thing and Giannis thing, and it was 91% agree and then 9% disagree, and it was just I basically said how I don't think it's fair for me to sit here and kind of judge the Lillard and Giannis thing duo yet, because it's we've seen these great duos as of late, recently. Remember when Harden and Durant paired with Irving in Brooklyn, and we thought, oh my God, GG's, it's over. No, they didn't even get by the second round. Same thing with Embiid and Harden. It didn't work. They didn't even get past second round. Last year with Beal, or who was it, Durant and Booker, I gave the exception because that was a half a season. I gave the exception, but it's I don't know, man. I'm not so quick to jump on the whole Bucks bandwagon yet. I do want to see how they play on the court, but go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so my thing with Damian Lillard is that I think we all know how great of a scorer Damian Lillard is, but this is also the first time I feel like Damian Lillard won't have to be the scorer, and this is the first time he's going to be put more into a facilitating type role,
Right.
at least in my opinion, because if you're the point guard, I mean, outside of Campaign, who else do you have on that team that's going to facilitate? So I think he's going to have to be a facilitator. We're going to have to see how he adapts to that. And we've seen players like James Harden who have been able to change their games. to fit around other superstars. And I don't think Damian Lillard is, not going to change, but
Yeah.
it's just going to be his first time playing with a bunch of guys who are I'm not going to say they weren't talented in Portland when he was there, but like a lot more high level players than he's used to.
Oh, I mean, this is
Because
like
let's be honest, who was the best player that Damian Lillard played with?
CJ McCollum. Or maybe
LaMarcus
LaMarcus
Aldridge, maybe.
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge.
LaMarcus Aldridge, CJ McCollum, definitely not
Nurkic,
Yusuf Nurkic. I don't know, Brandon Roy for when he was injured, maybe. I don't know if Brandon Roy was still on the team then. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it's just going to be interesting to see because this is the Dame's in a new environment. I feel like Milwaukee's culture is pretty solid, so I don't think he's going to have too much problems fitting in with the Bucks.
Right.
I think it's just going to be interesting because it's like kind of small town market, just like Portland. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem, but I think he'll be. It'll just be interesting.
There's a funny clip real quick that's like him talking about like the worst Dame's talking about like the worst places to live. And he's like, oh well, yeah, like Portland's actually really nice when you compare it to a city like Milwaukee or Cleveland. like he said that a year prior. Whose podcast was it? JJ Redick?
Probably.
I think it was on JJ Redick's podcast. So I thought that was pretty funny.
It's kind of ironic.
Did you see today? They posted a Damian Lillard or he was talking to Chris Hayes. They were doing an interview, and Dame had to abruptly leave an interview about like a few weeks ago, and he asked him what that was about. Well, apparently OG Anunoby from the Toronto Raptors texted Damian Lillard like, "Hey, welcome to Toronto, man. Glad to have you." And he was just messing around. Dame thought he was on his way to Toronto, but damn, imagine that Toronto team.
I mean,
it's already a mess.
I think
interesting.
I think Dame is half happy, half not happy. The basketball environment he gets to play in is phenomenal. Milwaukee's going to have a chance to, again, if you want an NBA, you want to just have a chance every year. Milwaukee will definitely have their chance to get to the finals. And which he does. He hasn't had a whole lot of that. I mean, Milwaukee does suck. Wisconsin's cold and kind of not ideal. It's not Miami, but
it's the opposite.
It's not Miami. It is the quite opposite. But I mean, in terms of basketball, he really couldn't maybe have landed in a better spot. East is really a 2-team race. You'll have a shot, and we'll see. Speaking of the East, this brings us to our annual standings predictions, and I'm excited for this because it's usually wrong, but
I mean, Christ, it's October, right?
Yeah.
Like so much happens between
something
October.
I will say, 2 years ago on this podcast, I perfectly predicted the Boston Celtics record with a 51-31. So
I'm not doing record.
I'm not either. So essentially, all preparing you guys are wrong. I'm right. I'm already gonna say that.
Aiden.
But let's get into it. We're gonna start from 10. We're gonna do the play-in. We'll go up. Justin, you can start us off. We'll go Justin, Ian, and then I'll finish.
You want to do playing? You said first.
Yeah, playing
10-1.
Yeah.
All right. Just making sure I have the right one. 10. I have. So it's crazy. It was for me. It was between Chicago and Toronto. I went with Toronto. I don't know. I feel like they could just squeak back into the play-in. It's usually always tight between the 10 and 12 spots, but I have Toronto at 10.
For me, it's completely different than what you just said. I have the Orlando Magic at 10. I think they're going to put it together this year, and I think they have a pretty outside shot of making it into the play-in. I think the Raptors, Bulls, and Magic are all going to be kind of competing for that last spot.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I like it.
So I got Orlando Magic at 10.
I like that. And it's kind of funny because like I think the East and West are like kind of flipped. So like the West top 6 is like really competitive, but like the bottom like 7 through 9 is like really like 7 through like 13 just doesn't really matter. And like the East is like flip, like 1 through 5 is not really competitive, but like that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 race is like going to be like 3 games. So my 10, I'll stop, talking. My 10 Chicago. I like both of your picks. I think Chicago is just good enough to make sense at 10. And yeah, I got Chicago at 10.
I don't think, like you said, I don't think any of us could be mad at our play-in picks because it's all interchangeable, to be honest with
Right.
you,
Yeah.
for the East. But
Yeah.
at 9,
They're in the play-in.
Ian, I agree with you so much on the Orlando Magic. I think they're going to do better than you think they're going to do, and I put them at 9. I put them at 9.
Oh,
I really, really am excited for this. I won't blab too much, but I'm really excited for this Orlando Magic team. Very high on Paolo, Rookie of the Year last year. I'm very high on Franz Wagner and Markel Fultz. When Markel Fultz is healthy, I'm very, very excited. He's a very exciting player. All he's got to do is stay healthy, though.
I like that.
all right. So my 9, I've been going back and forth, but I think I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Nets. They were okay when Mikal Bridges got there and Cam Johnson got there. I think they're going to be okay again. I mean, it can go either way with any position, but just by the way it's going to shake out, I think the Nets are going to be the 9 seed.
I'm right there with you. I got Brooklyn 9. Completely agree. I think Bridges good, Johnson good. They got a lot of talent. Claxton, Simmons is hit or miss. If you get a good Ben Simmons, I think you could see him get up to that 7
They could be
seed.
even better if Ben
Yeah.
Simmons is like he was.
I think they're going to be a really tough game-to-game matchup this season for teams.
So we just did 9. So my number 8 is the Atlanta Hawks. I don't know. I don't know if they're lower than they should be. But the Atlanta Hawks, I believe they lost John Collins this offseason. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the Hawks. They're always a fun team, but they are always around that 7, 8, 9 spot. So I do think I can't see them falling at the 8 seed this year.
Yeah, I also have the Atlanta Hawks with the 8 seed. I have the same thing. I think they've just been a mid team the last few years. And I mean, I thought John Collins was the most mid player on the most mid team in the NBA. So
They're
now that
literally
he's
the
gone,
most mid team.
they are the most mid team. Trae Young's cool, but everybody else, I don't see it. So Atlanta Hawks are the 8 seed.
Ooh, man, oh man. You guys are gonna be surprised where I put Atlanta.
Bro's got Atlanta at 2.
I got my 8 seed is Indiana.
I like
and
it.
I really think this is Indiana's year to get back to the playoffs. First time since 2019 with Oladipo. I love Halliburton. Honestly, Aaron Nesmith has carved out a great role. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. They got some talent. TJ McCollum, I really like them. I think you'll see him at 8.
Yeah, that's a very good pick. I don't have them in my plan, but that's a very good pick. That's a sleeper team. Just not even in the East, just in the entire NBA. That's a sleeper team.
Right.
In my 7, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Listen, I know it's a little bit higher than what you guys probably have them at, but I'm really banking on Ben Simmons this year. Look, I get it, the workout videos and everything like that, but like, dude, you guys can laugh. I really I'm praying for him. Like, I really hope he has a good season.
I hope he's good too.
Now that he's off Philly, I can root for him.
And if he is good, and if he is healthy, then they are going to be a solid team. Mikal Bridges, unbelievable. Cam Johnson sucks. He went down with an injury in training camp. Really like the addition of Lonnie Walker IV. He was on my free agent target list for the Celtics. I think Brooklyn is a good spot for him. So I have Brooklyn at 7.
All right. For my number 7, I'm going along with Rob and his hype about the Indiana Pacers. I have the Indiana Pacers at 7. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's going to turn it up again this year. He was great last year. I think he's going to be even better this year. I think Miles Turner showed a lot of improvement last year. And then I'm really high on Jarris Walker, their rookie.
Oh, good take.
I love Jarris Walker. So I think he's going to be pretty good this year too.
All right, 7. The Miami Heat. I have the Miami Heat. All right, so here's my deal. They didn't get better than they were last year. They just didn't. They lost Strus, they lost Vincent. I don't hate the fact they didn't pay those guys. Vincent and Strus made a lot of money. But they missed out on Dame. It's really what this roster was banking on. They did sign Josh Richardson. I like that. And I like the Triple J, Jameis Jaquez Jr. out of UCLA. I do like that. But I just think these 6 other teams, you're not going to get 82 games of playoff Jimmy. You're going to get like 41 of them, 50 of them. And then just talent wise, they're not really a regular. I could still see them getting out of the first round, but I think they have a very similar, very, very similar constructed roster as they did last year, and they were the 8 seed last year. So yeah, I think they finished 7, and I could honestly see them being a little bit lower. I'm not gonna lie.
At number 6, I'm gonna try not to go on a freaking tangent about this team. The Philadelphia 76ers are my 6th seed.
Really?
They are my 6th seed, and let me tell you why. I don't believe in anything that's going on in Philly. It is a hot mess down there. I think it will continue to be a hot mess down there. It would not shock me if at the end of the season, this is Joel Embiid's last year in Philly. That might be a hot take. That might be a hot take.
I don't hate it.
Some people don't think it's a hot take. Some people do. The James Harden situation is just messy. You going on there and calling his owner a liar, not showing up for training camp. This is the 3rd straight year a star point guard has missed training camp for the Sixers. Like, it's a hot mess. Like, at 6, I'd be very impressed if they get anywhere in the top 5 of the Eastern Conference this year. I really would, because it is a hot mess down there. I don't think the acquisitions. I do like the Kelly Oubre Jr. move. I think the Pat Beverly move, leadership wise, is solid. He's a good vet. I don't know if he's going to do.
They lost Paul Reed.
Right. I mean, yeah, Paul Reed they lost, which is a bigger loss than people are kind of banking on.
Paul Reed's good.
I have Philly at 6.
So at my 6, I've been going back and forth, and I think I'm going to go with the New York Knicks at 6. I like them. I don't really remember any move that they made this offseason. I feel like it's the same exact team. And
DiVincenzo. They got the Nova boys.
True. Yeah, but I don't know if that makes
He's like, true, doesn't change it.
I don't know if that makes a huge difference. So
they lost Obi Toppin.
Yeah, they lost Obi
Toppin. Oh,
Toppin.
Indiana's got Obi. They're my 4th seed now. Just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, the Knicks are cool. I think they're going to have another okay year like they did last year. I think they're going to be the 6th seed.
I'm going to join you, Justin. Sixers. I got them right at 6. It's low, though. I will say this is me putting Philadelphia at their floor. So I will admit that. I am putting them at their floor. In the year they didn't have Ben Simmons, they were still the 3 seed. So or the 4 seed. They were the 4 seed the year they didn't have Ben Simmons. So I do think that it's a hot mess. I agree with that. I think Harden will not be on the Sixers past the deadline. They will have to dump him. And again, it's just like good team, good East. I don't know. I got him at 6, but I could see him finishing 3 like they usually do, and just BSing their way through to Game 6 of the second round where they get bounced.
Right. If I'm basing it off of now, I'm putting him at 6. This is October.
Yeah. And that's their floor, though. They were not going to go any lower than 6.
No playing team, and I agree. But when I do predictions, I'm going off of what I'm seeing at this current moment right now.
Right.
At 5, Rob, I 100% agree with what you just said about Miami 20 seconds ago, but I'm putting them at my 5 spot because it's the freaking Miami Heat, and they somehow are always there, and they're always going to be there no matter how good, bad, mid they are. I can see them being a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference still. But I do agree with you. The losses, they had some pretty big losses off their bench this year. I do like the rookie they drafted. He looked really solid in Summer League. Tyler Hero's been thrown in more trade rumors than Malcolm Brogdon has. But he seems to be okay. But I do think the window is closing on Miami in the Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero era. I truly do. And this isn't me being a biased Celtics fan. This is just what I think.
Jimmy's 34.
Miami at 5.
Yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I also have the Miami Heat at 5. It feels like they're just not going to be a play-in team again. They're always going to find some random person that's going to become an all-star level player for some reason or another. Some team will cut a guy from training camp this year, and he'll immediately turn into like a 20-point per game player for the Heat this year. That's just the way it goes. I really like Bam Adebayo this year for some reason. Like years past, I always thought Bam was good, but not good enough. I think him in the playoff series against the Celtics, I think he showed something that I think is going to make him
always
even
does,
better.
though, against us.
I
swear. It's only us. I swear. Oh, my God.
You remember what he looked like in that playing game against Atlanta?
I swear. He just loves He just, oh my god.
But I like Bam Adebayo this year. I do. I think he's going to start to take more responsibility.
All right. So this is. I got Atlanta at 5. I got Atlanta at 5. Now, hear me out. I think. How did I say? Okay, so I think the John Collins was addition by subtraction, because I don't think there was a real role for him there, and I think it created turmoil. And I think when you have a really good player, because I think I'm a big John Collins guy. When you have a good player playing a role that's like not what he should be playing, I think it just gets messy. They were a great team under
Quinn Snyder.
I think having a full offseason with Quinn Snyder is going to benefit them.
I agree.
I think Trae Young is one of the most underrated, underappreciated superstars this league has to offer. His passing, his shooting, his scoring, his motor, I think is all there. I'm a big Trae Young guy. I think they finish 5 in a close race with the Sixers in the team I have above them, who I'm not going to say. But yeah, I got Atlanta finishing 5. I think those boys in down in ATL have a bounce back year.
I have them down at 8, but that's a very, very, very good point with Quinn Snyder. They were a totally different team, and Joe Mazzulla mentioned that. He did a podcast with JJ Redick recently, and he mentioned how Atlanta was just a totally different team. It was hard to game plan against them in the playoffs because like they had their year stats, but like they also like don't forget like half a year was with Nate McMillan, so like
Right.
they were But yeah, Atlanta is a very dark horse team. They could very much squeak into that top 5. I have them at 8, but my number 4. We're on 4, right?
Yeah.
My number 4 is the New York Knicks. Like New York again. Like I don't know. Can Julius Randle have a good year? I feel like he's very inconsistent with his years. Will Julius Randle be around by come playoff time in New York? I'm excited to see this Knicks team. I will admit, like the Celtics Knicks matchups are so much fun when both of them like aren't like sucky teams. Like they're
Right.
very entertaining. I love Josh Hart. I really think Josh Hart is like such a good player. I'm excited for who's their point guard, Jalen Brunson. I don't know why it blanked. He's very improved player, and I have New York at 4.
So my number 4 is the 76ers. And like we've said in the past, this isn't the first time Joel Embiid's had to deal with his second option not being around. And they just always find a way to win games in the regular season.
Right.
Joel Embiid could easily have another MVP type season like he did last year, and I still think it's not going to matter. I think with James Harden gone and not even playing, Tyrese Maxey is going to be even better than he was last year.
Right.
And, I mean, Tobias Harris is Tobias Harris, so what are you going to do? So I think the 76ers will still find a way. I think Joel Embiid will carry them to the 4 seed this year.
Yeah, I honestly think they're anywhere for like 4 through 6. 6 is their floor. I think 4 might be their ceiling this year. So I don't hate that by any means. My 4 is the Knicks. I would put the Knicks as high as 2, quite honestly. That's how high I am on the New York Knicks this year. I think Jalen Brunson is a culture setter, and I think that's super important. The Knicks haven't had culture in so long. They haven't had real culture since Melo in that 2012 season. I think what Brunson brought was so unique. High on Jalen. He got snubbed to the All-Star team. I'm expecting a jump from RJ Barrett. I'm expecting Julius Randle to be regular season Julius Randle, and then the playoffs will come. But yeah, I like the DiVincenzo. I think they got some good chemistry. I think they're going to get a full season of Josh Hart. Again, another team, once they had Josh Hart at that deadline, they were a much better competitive team defensively. Just they could do more. He's a utility guy. I like New York. I think they're going to finish 4, but call me crazy. You could see them be sitting at the top of the East at some point in the regular season for maybe a week or so. But I think they finish 4.
What are we? 3?
3.
I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a team where I am not as high on as I was last year. I think I put Cleveland. I might have put Cleveland at 2 last year. I don't know.
I did too. I put Cleveland at 2.
I was pretty high on the Cavs last year, rightfully so. They had a very solid year. Then I think they got bounced. What was it? Second round by New York.
First round by New York.
Oh, was it first round? It was to New York,
first
right?
round.
Yeah.
To New York. And but I'm excited. I really do like the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think Max Strus was a very solid addition, but he is kind of inconsistent. He's very I wouldn't say I'd say streaky. He's a very streaky player. But they got Tristan Thompson back, who's a good veteran. He won there. I don't know how much skill wise that's going to matter, but I guess that is a solid backup center to Jared Allen, who Jared Allen is one of my favorite centers in the league. I just think he's so fun to watch. Evan Mobley, obviously, the progression of him is going to be important. The health of him is going to be important. But the question that I kind of sit here and question is Donovan Mitchell, because I think there's been some talks about him potentially not even re-signing next year or extending or whatever it is. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Don't forget, we grabbed one of their best defenders on the team, Lamar Stevens. So that's going to be interesting to see how they fill that gap as well.
Right.
But as far as Cleveland, I have them as a 3 seed as of right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I also have the Cavs as the 3 seed. I think I love the Cavs team. I will say I'm not very high on Darius Garland. I like him. It's just I don't think he does anything that's going to really take over a game. Like he's really okay at everything, but he's not really elite in anything in my opinion. I love Donovan Mitchell. I think Evan Mobley is going to have a huge season this year, and look out for him to be most improved player in the NBA this year. So I'm pretty excited for Evan Mobley. I think their depth is pretty much the same. I think if Mobley can take a step offensively, I think that's going to really be the tone to see how far the Cavs go this year.
Right.
But also, like you mentioned with Donovan Mitchell, if this is like, let's just say a Kyrie Irving thing, when Kyrie Irving was on the Celtics and we didn't know if he was going to stay or not, it could cause turmoil in the locker room, and it could be a very not good season for the Cavs. So, but I don't think Donovan Mitchell's that kind of guy. Like, I don't think he's going to intentionally try to cause problems.
Right.
So I think the Cavs are still going to end up being the 3 seed this year.
Yeah, something tells me our top 3 are all the same. I also have Cleveland at 3. Same reasons as you guys do. I think they have a lot going for them. I do think in the future they should look into just little tweaks. I don't love the double big Mobley Allen. I think there's going to be real spacing problems. I think you're kind of taking away from Mobley with Allen on the court. I do think they should look into that, but I think they're going to be a very competitive regular season team. I'm happy they'll be on not our side of the bracket, but I think I just gave away with my next 2 picks. But I'm assuming we all have the next 2 picks. We can go through it.
To quickly before I move on, I want to mention on the Cavs part, like they still have Ricky Rubio, which when Ricky Rubio, before he got hurt, he was balling out in Cleveland, and he was playing some of the best basketball he's played in his career. So if he can get healthy, I think he'll also contribute well to that team and be a good vet. But my number 2 is Milwaukee Bucks. Hey, friggin' call me biased, whatever. But like, I don't know. I feel like Boston and Milwaukee is interchangeable for me. And I say that because I don't know. I feel like it's always interchangeable, Boston and Milwaukee. It doesn't matter who gets the 1 seed in terms of like you got to be able to win on the road. That's my thing. When you get to the playoffs and you're competing for a championship, you got to be able to win on the road. But I have Milwaukee at 2. I don't know. I want to see how this Dame Giannis thing goes out. We've kind of spent almost half the podcast talking about it, so I'm not really going to keep going. But I just have Milwaukee at 2.
So my number 2 is the Charlotte Hornets. I think Miles Bridges coming back is really good. Kai Jones is a god. Mr. Beast is now their sponsor. So
they now have Mr. Beast.
I think with the good karma of Mr. Beast, I think the Charlotte Hornets are the 2 seed this year. But no, it's actually the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I got Milwaukee at 2. I think the one thing, I think they're a little bit older than Boston is, so I think maybe you can see a couple times where maybe they got some guys out of the lineup where Boston might not have that, but Boston's got a couple injury-prone guys with, whatever it is. So yeah, no, Boston 1, Milwaukee 2, obviously. All right, last segment.
Hang on. Before we go to the next segment, I do want to say something about the Celtics. If they're not the 1 seed this year, I don't really care.
That's fair. That's actually a good point.
Because even if you listen to Joe Mazzulla on JJ Redick's podcast, there was that clip going around where he said he was so worried about the 1 seed last year that when they lost it, he was kind of like taken aback. I don't really care who the 1 seed is. if the Celtics are the 1 seed, that's great. If they're not the 1 seed, then oh well, because I don't really think it matters who the 1 seed is at this point. So,
Yeah, but I mean,
but
I
think
said,
they're still going to be. I just don't think it. I just don't personally care.
right. I mean, I said it too. Like, you got to be able to win on the road, like whether you have home court advantage or not. Like the Celtics were able to win on the road last year when it mattered most. Celtics have actually sucked at home in the playoffs over the past couple of seasons.
Yep.
But I mean,
Hey,
yeah,
and if they're the 2 seed and Milwaukee's the 1 seed and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Celtics play a lot better in Milwaukee than they do in
Yeah,
I know.
I
Boston.
love playing in Milwaukee.
they
So,
do love
I
playing in
mean,
Milwaukee. We'll take
they
it.
won 2 of their games in the playoffs in what was that 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Game
they
6
won
JT.
game 6 and they won game
4.
4.
No, 4. Yeah, 3 was
Yeah,
that stupid
3
foul
that
on
was
Smart or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they won game 4, game 6, and obviously game 7, but home court advantage never matters with the Celtics because for some reason they hate playing at home in the playoffs.
That's true. They do. I don't know what it is. I don't know what, which is funny because
Maybe
it used to be,
maybe
They get
maybe
too
it's the
comfortable.
way.
it
Like,
used to be.
Yeah, it's
All right,
too
but
comfortable.
you know what? Quick point. That's gone this year. New team. I'm serious. Those problems.
Oh, I agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree. But
And
I'm saying,
I
like,
think
that's been the problem.
we're
though.
gonna
Like,
we're gonna talk
remember
about that in next week's episode.
Hey, we're no longer bleed green. We're different here now.
Yeah, we're
so.
different. Yeah, we're different. No, like seriously, like it's a much like those last 5 minute and like you're going to see a brand new Boston Celtics. We'll talk about it more but you know that's my point, Justin. Real quick, sorry, I cut you
No,
off.
you're good. No, I just said, remember, we kept saying the word, Rob, complacent. Like the Celtics, we get too
Yeah.
complacent. They get the big lead up at home, and then they get too complacent. They play around with it, and all of a sudden they lose. Like that's what it was. I don't think it's gonna be like that this year.
No, yeah,
I hope it's not like that.
and if
God
it
help me.
is, quick,
if
real
it's
quick,
like that after we made all those switches, I'll cry.
real quick though, if it is, we know we know exactly who it is. Brown and Tatum. Like that's the glory. That's the amazing part about what we just did is
Yeah.
that it
Trade him.
is that
Get rid of them.
no, but that's exciting. So but let's hop into the awards predictions. Because honestly, this is my favorite one. I love the standings prediction, but I love the awards because I think they're to pick out an individual player who we don't really get to talk about as much, being mainly focused on the Celtics. I think is fun. I'm gonna start us at Coach of the Year. I'll start us off. Coach of the Year is going to be Ime Udoka. I think that the Houston Rockets turnaround in terms of games won is going to be very significant. And I think that talk about culture, when I talked about New York, Ime Udoka brings that culture to Houston. He did it with Boston, and I think he's going to do it with Houston. I am really high on the Houston Rockets this year. I think everything there works. I think the talent's there. I think everything is there, and they just needed a guy to be like, hey, no, we're playing basketball. We're playing defense. We're getting stops. We're rebounding. We're playing basketball. He'll scream at you if he needs to. That's Ime. Ime, Coach of the Year.
My Coach of the Year, Mark Dagnall of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I like that pick too. I like
He
that pick a lot.
he finished third. He finished third in the voting last year, but I'm very excited about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, I mean, I think they did rebuilding right. I really do. They didn't go out and they didn't buy players or whatever. They drafted, they developed, they traded and got draft stock. I just, Sam Presti did a great job over there. Mark Dagnall, Coach of the Year.
Justin, I'm glad you said that because Mark Dagnall's also my pick, and I'm glad you went before me because I had no idea how to pronounce his last name.
He's from Leominster.
I know he's from Leominster, but I just didn't know how to pronounce it. But yes, he's also my Coach of the Year. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be a lot better than even what some people think. I think a lot of people are high on the Thunder, but I think they could be even better than that. They could be a top 6 seed in the West. I don't know if I particularly have them as a top 6 seed in the West, but if a team like the Clippers or the Kings or the Grizzlies regress, then I think you could see the Thunder, having a top seed in the Western Conference this year.
Pronounce it. How
Dagnall.
No, how are you gonna pronounce it?
I had no idea. I was just gonna. I think I knew you were gonna have that, so that's why I'm glad you went first. So I think I knew you were gonna pick Dagnall though.
Dagnall was my second. I was gonna pick him, but then I was like, "Ooh, let me think about this," because
and if it's not Dagnall, I'm gonna go with Mike Malone with the Nuggets because I think
okay.
I think the Nuggets are gonna have a great year.
All right, so most improved. Now, my most improved follows my coach of the year narrative. The most improved player is going to be Jalen Green. Jalen Green, people don't realize how offensively gifted that guy is. He just needs to put it together. He's entering his third year in the NBA. Offensively, again, what he can do with the basketball is so, so amazing. He's so athletic. And I think he just needed his coach to just steer him straight. Hey, Jalen, no, you're not doing this. Jalen, slow down. Jalen, let's slow the game down for you, Jalen. And I think that Ime is going to do that because I saw Ime Udoka do it with Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown with my own two eyes. So I think that Jalen Green is going to take a huge jump this year.
Oh my gosh, I don't know who to pick for this award. I'm gonna say two names. One of them might be so stupid, but I don't know. I just like him as a player, so I'm gonna say it. Keegan Murray of the Sacramento Kings.
I don't hate that. I like
He's
that.
good. He's good.
You think that's a solid pick? That doesn't.
I think that's a good pick.
And I'd also keep an eye on the Jordan Poole situation, where now he
Right.
is kind of the guy out in. I mean, exception of Kuzma, the guy out in Washington. So I definitely keep an eye on that. But I'd say Keegan Murray is my top pick.
So I also had two names, and I didn't know who I wanted to go with, but I guess I'll just say both. My first pick is Mikal Bridges. I think his jump last year, once he got to Brooklyn, I think he's just going to be even better. And I'm still a huge Evan Mobley fan, so I think Evan Mobley also has a chance to be in the most improved player competition. And if the Cavs are a top 3 seed, I think you're going to see a lot of Evan Mobley talk about being most improved, if he is most improved.
Is there comeback player of the year? Not to interrupt you, Rob.
No.
Oh, that's not a thing. I was going to say,
that's
if that was an award,
baseball thing.
If that was an award, be on the lookout for Cade Cunningham. If that was an award,
well, you know what? You know what I think this is off topic, but it's not really off topic. The NBA should introduce an Offensive Player of the Year award because they have a Defensive Player of the Year. Why don't you have an offensive, like in the NFL, for example, right? Like, yeah, they have the scoring leaders, right? But in the NFL, you have the reception leader, you have the yards leader, you have the touchdown leader, but then you also have the Offensive Player of the Year, which is a separate award from the MVP. And it's like years in which it would have made the most, like Harden, when he averaged like 36, wasn't really the most valuable player. He was the Offensive Player of the Year. He was scoring the most. So it's like,
yeah, but 99% of the time, the leading scorer in the NBA ends up being the MVP. So, like,
I don't think, I don't know.
Like
though,
Embiid.
Yeah, but Jokic
Harden,
2 years, then
yeah,
Giannis they didn't
Jokic
lead,
was kind of
and then
different.
yeah, I mean, I guess I think it'd
most
be
of the time,
though. I think it would be an interesting
the MVP
thing.
is such like a offensively driven award that like.
But that's my problem with it, is that it needs to switch because the MVP is there is so much more to the NBA.
But that's what Jaylen Brown was saying in the media day. It's like we look at all these great players and we just focus on their offensive stats. We don't really focus on their defense.
That's what I'm saying. So if you bring an Offensive Player of the Year award, it's like, okay, the MVP offense also isn't just scoring. For example, like offense is playmaking, offense is facilitating, offense is like there is so much more to offense than just like I scored 32 points per game. I scored like okay, cool. 40 players in the NBA last year scored 20 points per game, right? It's like that doesn't make you special. It's I think there's a lot more to basketball that people are really like I'm serious, and like obviously it makes you special, but not into like the terms of like you know what I mean. I couldn't do it, but it's like
there you go.
like I'm not sitting here saying I can do it, but I can. But I mean, I think there's so much more to basketball than just it's getting so polarizing. It's like, no, like you take a look at it, the most valuable player, it's not just the guy scoring 30 points. There's so much more to it. Who's shooting efficiently? Who's adding to their win share? Right? That's my point. Let's go to the Rookie of the Year though. The obvious one's Wembanyama, but I don't think he does it. I think Scoot Henderson does it because I really like what's brewing in Portland right now. And I think they're actually going to be a pretty competitive basketball team. And I think Scoot is going to be the guy to run the show. And I think he's NBA ready. He's big. I could see Scoot. He's just the most NBA ready player in the draft, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I go Scoot because I also think he's the most NBA ready. And I think I said that when I did the low zone. I don't know. He kind of reminds me of Paolo Banchero. Like when I watched him play, like in terms of just being NBA ready. Like when I saw Paolo play in preseason, I was like, yeah, this guy does not need to be in preseason or summer league or whatever. Like he's ready. I don't know though. Like the narrative on Wemby like was going like 2 years before he was freaking drafted. So who knows? But I mean, Wemby also has an interesting, unique situation down there in where is he? San Antonio. But yeah, I'd go Scoot. You know who I wouldn't go? No disrespect, but I would not go Brandon Miller out of Charlotte.
I'm a big Brandon Miller guy.
I don't know, man.
I am.
I don't know.
Well, if Brandon Miller does win Rookie of the Year, my Charlotte Hornets will be the 2nd seed. I agree with both of you. I still think Scoot Henderson's going to win Rookie of the Year. I love Wembanyama. I think he's going to be great. I don't think the Spurs are going to be a great team, and I think the Trailblazers are going to be better than the Spurs.
Yeah.
So
totally. Spurs got Blazers got a squad.
They do have a squad now. And I think that the Trailblazers are going to be fighting. You're going to see their names in play-in. I don't think they're going to make the play-in, but you're going to see their names tossed around in the play-in for most of the game and for most of the season. So I think Scoot Henderson's going to win Rookie of the Year. Obviously, this is all. I think it's whoever stays healthy the most too.
Yeah.
So I think
was gonna
Scoot
say that
has a higher chance of staying healthy than Wembanyama does.
I think Wemby is a project. I think he's going to be. I don't know. My Wemby take is it's not.
We'll
the time
see.
and place.
We'll see.
No.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I think your take is fine because if you think about it, let's look at either Anthony Davis. He didn't win Rookie of the Year.
Right. It takes time. It just takes some time.
So it's going to take time for
Right.
Wembanyama to be this crazy great player, in my opinion. So
no, yeah, I'm with you there on that.
Who won Rookie of the Year Tatum's year? Was it Lonzo?
Ben Simmons.
No, it was Ben Simmons. Remember? It was the Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell thing.
Yeah.
And then
Celtics Sixers when Tatum was at the line, everyone would chant, "He's a rookie."
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So
he got drafted with Brown.
It should have been Donovan Mitchell. But...
Yeah, he got drafted with Brown. So let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. And I've been keeping my mouth shut when Ian's been talking all episode long because I have secretly been agreeing with everything he said, but I wanted to hold it for right now.
You're not
Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year. I love that, Ian. I've been with you all podcast episode on that. I think Mobley, super long. I think that he's super athletic and block shots. I think Jaren Jackson has set the framework for what the NBA's defensive prototype is. And I think Mobley is that. Tall, athletic, guards 1 through 5, can switch everything, can rim protect. Big on Evan Mobley this year.
Yeah, I'd go Evan Mobley. I'd also I don't know. I'm pretty high on Jaren Jackson Jr. defensively. I think you brought up 2 good points. I think I'm gonna lean Jaren Jackson going back to back, but I think Evan Mobley is just a tremendous pickup. People don't realize when Evan Mobley, I get it, he was injured, but people don't realize how effective Evan Mobley is and how good of a player Evan Mobley is.
You know what? This pains me to say, but you know who's going to be in the mix? Robert Williams. Yeah. I think Robert Williams. You could see him in the mix. I think you got to say Jrue Holiday in the mix though. So let's get that straight. But I think you could see Robert Williams.
So in my opinion, I think Evan Mobley would be my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. But who I actually think is going to win it, I think it's going to be Bam Adebayo.
Like that.
I'm not going to lie. I think it's going to be Bam. Bam has been in the conversation for the last 3 years, and arguably he could have won it. He could have won it any of those years, especially last year. I thought Bam was going to win it last year, but
does he pull a Joel Embiid? Does he cry for it?
I don't think he goes that far, but I think
he's got morals, dude.
I think Bam has a really good chance of taking it, but I really want to see Evan Mobley win it. Because he could have arguably won.
I like that
pick.
Year. I like that pick.
But I love Evan Mobley. So
yeah.
Ben
so
Simmons coming back, boy.
I think Ben Simmons has an argument for all defensive team if he's back.
Yeah. I'm
totally,
with that.
Totally.
All right. MVP, the most valuable player in the NBA.
I'm going first, and I'm saying, listen, this is his year. It's Jason Tatum. It's his year. I'm going. I don't care. I'm dictating it now. Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum. Number 1, listen, Listen, that's not me being biased. This is his year. This is his year, and by narrative, this is his year as well with the whole 7-year BS type.
You see
stuff
the
with
Giannis and
LeBron,
Jokic
Curry,
and
Giannis,
LeBron.
Jokic,
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
guys were not better than Tatum. Dark horse, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Dark horse MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You want my top 3? I'll give you my top 3. Jason Tatum.
Ian and I are just
dating himself.
Jason
Ian and I
Tatum,
are just
Shai
saying-
Gilgeous-Alexander, and
like-
Jokic. Jokic is coming back. I don't think he's
that's so
interested though.
funny.
The guy doesn't want to be there. It's a 9 to 5 for Jokic. But
That's why I
Alright.
love Jokic. But
so that's my top 3 for those who were kept asking me.
I'm sorry, Justin. We had to painfully get that out of you. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's Jason Tatum's year. It'll probably, as much as it pains me to say, it'll probably end up being Luka Doncic, in my opinion, because they've been wanting Luka Doncic to be the MVP for so long
I know
that eventually they're going to be like, oh, well, Jason Tatum has Jaylen Brown, and he has Jrue Holiday, and he has Kristaps Porzingis. Luka Doncic only has Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie's probably not even going to be there at the time, and Grant Williams. So they'll probably give it to Luka Doncic, as much as that sucks. But if they're being serious and they're actually saying who the best player in the NBA is going to be this year, it's going to be Jason Tatum. He has to win it this year, because then everyone can shut up about the fact that he doesn't have any awards outside of freaking All-Star Game MVP and Eastern
Conference Finals MVP.
So.
That's not something. Well, I
Larry
agree.
Bird Award.
Jason Tatum. I don't disagree with you, Luka, but I don't think Dallas is going to be good enough to do that. I think the West is so stacked in terms of regular season success where they're going to be at. I'm not high on that duo. Tatum, again, narrative-wise, it's just kind of like, if you were to predict it, I know we are Celtics fans, so it is biased. I'll take that with my chest. Narrative-wise, it's there. Year 7. Everything's leading up. He's got a really good basketball team. Everything's leading up for the Jason Tatum MVP. He was the guy through like 50 games last year,
season, he was
and then
guy.
he just had a terrible month stretch where he fell down to 4. And I think guys like Holiday and Porzingis are going to make his life easier. So yeah, Jason Tatum, it's your season.
Who's your top 3?
I got Tatum, and I think Giannis is going to be there because I think Milwaukee's going to be good.
See, you
and
know
then-
what? Oh wait, no. Did you say your no? You
I got one more. Luka, for me, again, if I'm going off narrative, I think he's not narratively there yet because I don't think they're going to be good enough. So I'm going to go. I don't hate the Shai pick.
Does the Joker slide back in the talk?
I'm hesitant to pick the Joker because I'm trying to think a little bit outside the box. So I'm gonna say
Lamar Stevens.
I'm gonna say God. You know what? I'm gonna go Anthony Davis. If I were to have a little bold prediction, maybe AD stays healthy this year. That's my 3.
So if I had my top 3, I think it's going to be Tatum. I think Joel Embiid's going to be in it again because they're going to
cry.
He's going to cry for it again because he's like, oh, look at me. I don't have James Harden. I haven't had my top scorer next to me. I'm the most valuable player to my team, especially if Philly's a top seed this year. I swear to God, if Philly has the number 1 seed at any point this year, you're going to see the Joel Embiid conversations about the MVP back to back. That, and I think I know Luka's not there years wise. I just think it's going to be a year where he's going to end up averaging over 30 again. I just think he's going to be just absolutely insane again. Right. And the Mavericks might be like the 10th seed this year or the 9th seed, or they could be even better because when they were healthy with Luka, because he missed some time last year.
They were terrible once Kyrie got there, though. Like god awful.
They were, but you could
like
also
god awful.
You could also have that as the whole half a season type thing, because like
I just hate Kyrie Irving.
Season with Kyrie Irving, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
We'll see.
You don't know
how
it's going to be with Kyrie, so he could be the best second option in the league, or he could just not play for your team. So
yeah, we got to see a full season.
Now
Tatum.
now he has Grant Williams. So
I'll say this: if Tatum puts together a full season, he'll win it. End of story.
Tatum,
That's really what I got to do.
he cannot fall off in January, February again.
Yes. So
If
that's the story.
if he has a bad start to the year, I'm okay. If he
Right.
has an insane hot streak at the end of the year, because that's what you need in the MVP. The MVP, with the award itself, the only thing that matters is after the All-Star break. It's any matchup you have after the All-Star break. That's where the MVP is actually
decided.
made.
Right.
Because look what happened last year. That one game Joel Embiid had versus Nikola Jokic when he had like 46 on Jokic, and he had that game right before the end of the season where he dropped 52 on the Celtics. Like, those are the games that basically gave Joel Embiid the MVP last year.
Right.
Obviously,
No, absolutely.
plus narratives and stuff, but
Yeah, it's a
just
narrative-driven
one of those
award.
things where it's Tatum has to, if they play the Buck, I can't remember the Celtics schedule off the top of my head, but if they play the Bucks at the end of the year and he drops like 55 on the Bucks and he hasn't fallen off, he's going to be up there with the MVP conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a fun season, man. Listen, this is our last podcast episode before the season starts. Next time you'll be hearing us, we'll be getting to talk real Celtics basketball, not predictions, not any of that. We get to actually have a sample size.
Actually, we'll have 2 preseason games down by the next time you hear from us.
Technically one, because we'll be recording right before the second game. But
oh yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe we'll do it no, we got to.
Ian and I are going to that game, so
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, well, some scheduling issues here from Celtics side. We'll figure it out. We can rip on Monday.
It's the 17th. That's two Tuesdays.
Oh, you're going to the 17th. Oh, okay. Yeah, Justin, shut up.
No.
Well, no. Anyways, we can talk about this off camera. Anyways, guys. Again, last episode. Before the season starts, super exciting. We're going to be this year. I promise you guys, this is going to absolutely be our best year. In terms of how much we're going to be pushing content and the type of content we're going to be creating. So I thank you guys so much. I'll tell you what, this is our longest podcast ever, an hour and 15 minutes. If you've made it through this podcast, I give you my appreciation, because I barely made it through this podcast. So
you must be so bored right now. Let's talk
about I will say the second half of this podcast picked up once we start talking about standings and whatnot. But guys, thank you so much again for listening in and joining us here on the Celtics Talk Weekly. I'm Rob. Next to me is Justin. Below me is my boy Ian. Until next time, guys, go Celtics.